All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Designing the Best You. And today we have a very special guest, Miss Kerry Magnus. Guys, she is from Africa, first of all. Second of all, she is a holistic psychologist and body talk practitioner, which I want to get into that, who supports women who are deeply called to make an impact in the world, to embrace their purpose and do it, this is the key thing, without burning out. She offers a unique mind, body, and spirit approach to understand and transform the underlying patterns, meaning the beliefs, the habitual responses, the coping mechanisms, and create an overly sensitive stress response, physical imbalance, and fatigue. Hers is an approach that goes way beyond relying on medical practitioners to take your power back into your own hands. As you become more aware of what has caused your fatigue, which so many of you out there with a chronic illness and autoimmune condition just deal with, and what is needed to step back into your balanced, thriving self. Through her own journey of adrenal fatigue syndrome, Kerry discovered that many women battle with chronic fatigue, and they meet most of the criteria of what she calls the holding personality. And it's only when they understand why this is and how it impacts their lives that they can choose a more authentic and healthy way of being and showing up, experiencing ease, joy, and vitality as a result. And I believe that's what we all are searching for these days with the busy of the world. So welcome, Kerry. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for allowing me to be here.
Of course. So tell us about your story. You mentioned in your bio that you have had adrenal fatigue syndrome. Tell us kind of like what happened with that.
Well, you know, if I think about it, I was tired from even in my teenage years. I remember going on a school camp when I was 13 and needing to sleep in the afternoon the one day. And they took photos of me, and then I was teased relentlessly after that.
That's teenage.
I know. And I didn't understand why I was always more tired. With the understanding I now know of the psychology of it, it makes a lot more sense. But so I always was someone who battled with fatigue, and went through my 20s still also just I went through stages of just feeling dizzy and tired, and the doctors just said, no, it's stress, which it probably was, but more than obviously as a result of the stress. And it was only actually in 2010 when it really started to impact me big time. I was working in a prison as a psychologist, and in a system where it's like hitting your head against a brick wall, because everything I was trying to do was being undone by the system. And I was just constantly ill. I would come home and I'd feel like my legs were lead. I was exhausted. I couldn't do anything. And I, at that point, decided I can't do this anymore. I need to change, and started building my own practice. So then I was still doing that job and trying to build my own practice in the evenings, which wasn't ideal, but it gave me something to then kind of move into once I had left prison. And I kind of managed okay until I had my first child, my daughter, in 2012. And you know, when you're tired and you expect to be tired because, you know, your child's not sleeping and all of that. And I just thought, but this, I said to my sister's a functional doctor, and I said, this is just more than tired. There's something wrong. And in fact, in 2010, when I'd been battling so much then, I had gone to a doctor. Firstly, my psychologist had said to me, perhaps you need to be on antidepressants. And I said, this isn't depression. This is more than depression. And then I went to the doctor, and he said, and I said to him, I know you're going to tell me this is depression, but it's not. It's more than it. Yes, I'm feeling down, but that's because I'm so tired all the time. I just can't function the way I'm used to functioning. And he also said antidepressants. So then my husband said, well, perhaps you should consider the antidepressants. And then I started to doubt myself, but I didn't go on them then. I must say I did actually at other stages where I just thought, well, maybe I do need to give myself some kind of support here, because I really didn't know what to do. But 2012, after a year of just debilitating exhaustion, like really just not able to be there for my children, for my daughter, when you can only have enough energy to maybe do one thing a day, which was either go fetch her from school or go, I mean, this was in the later years as well, but what is it that I can spend my tiny bit of energy on today before I have to be back on the couch again, and just feeling such a useless partner, useless mother. And my sister had just started studying functional medicine. She said, I think I know what's going on. And I was very fortunate here, because I know people can go through the system for years and not get answers.
Oh yeah,
And
I was there.
yeah.
So many of the people in the community are.
Yes, exactly. And I know it also makes you think that you're going crazy, and there's some like, if no one else is picking it up, then it must be something seriously wrong with me, or I must be going crazy. But she just said, no, I think I actually know what's going on. And she did the tests and whatnot, and said to me, yeah, you've got adrenal fatigue syndrome. And I was like, thank you, because I'm tired of sitting in these moms and babes sessions where everyone's tired, but yet they're so chirpy and they can still remember like what's been happening the week before. And all I can see is fog when I look back. It's just fog. And I was like, I'm tired, but so much more tired than these moms. What's wrong with me? So it was so nice to have something. So I did all the right things, and I ate the right food, and I did my elimination diet, and I did a gut repair, and took some bioidentical hormones at that point, and I started to feel better, and I thought, this is fantastic. So I started to go back to what I believed was my normal, and within a couple of weeks of that, I crashed again. And this is what struck me, is my sister said to me, oh no, most of my patients do that. And then I was like, okay, I should know that actually, because I work with body and mind. And of course I can't just rely on this stuff to keep me going. I can't just rely on the supplements and the way I eat to be the answer to everything. It can't be a quick fix. Obviously it's not, but I desperately wanted it to be.
As so many people do. We all want, like, if we do the elimination diet, like we do it once, that's it. Like, that's all we need, right? So it's all we got to do. We just got to take some, our vitamin D's down. Let's just take some vitamin D and call it a day. And nope.
Yeah. Oh, we all pray for that. And so I continued to do this, what I call the roller coaster, for 4 years, where I would start to feel better, and then I'd kind of start implementing things back in my life that I hadn't had the energy for, and I'd crash again. And also what I noticed was, as soon as there was a stressful period, I'd go into this kind of like frenzy state inside myself, like I was driven and I was wired, and I couldn't stop myself. And I knew that as soon as things slowed down, I would crash again. So I became quite familiar with a pattern, which was really useful, because then I started to use my body as a gauge of, okay, you're going into that place again, you need to slow down, otherwise it's going to push you. You're going to get to the point where when it stops, you're going to crash. And so I was slowly starting to look under it and look at the patterns and look at, what am I bringing into this? But the fact is, I was too tired and too overwhelmed and too exhausted most of the time to make sense of it from a deeper perspective. And I needed someone else to help me to do that. And I had been, part of what I have to do is being a therapist is to be in therapy myself. And so I had been in and out of therapy, but it had been very analytical, very much in the headspace. And then I'd been having my body talk sessions with my colleagues as well. And slowly things were sort of starting to come together. And then I finally had 3 major traumas happen in 1 year. This was in 2017. And I felt myself go into that state again. So the first one was in March, then the next 2 were in June. And from June onwards, I could feel I was in kind of fight-flight mode, which I call the holding state. And I knew that this is it. I said to myself, this is the last time this is going to happen. What is this about? And I had this realization that I've never felt safe in my life. And when I say safe, in South Africa, that's very real because there's unfortunately quite a lot of crime. And one of those traumas was that my neighbor had a home invasion and they'd stabbed her husband. And I was the first one on the scene to help her, and I stayed with her the whole night. And I'd worked in trauma in South Africa, so I had a very good idea about what's out there. And so there's that safety, but it was much more than that. It was just a sense of not trusting that I could be okay just as I am, without having to do anything, without having to meet any conditions, that everything would be okay, even if it was difficult and challenging, that I'd still get through it away.
I love that you said that, because so many, just women in general, because we take on so much. I mean, we've been given that ability to take on so much, but we don't recognize that we got to just like slow down, and it is really okay to be where we're at and to accept.
That's it. And I had this insight that my adrenal fatigue for me was a gift. And it was a gift that was saying to me, the way that I've been doing life for most of my life is not serving me. And it's time to come back home to what my truth is. And that began my journey. But firstly, I mean, just that acceptance and that reshift of my perspective, instead of hating my body and as a body talk practitioner, I already knew my body was telling me something, but I still went through stages of like, I hate this. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the body talk, because a lot of people that are listening haven't heard of it and they don't know what it is, and they're like, body talk, they're like, hi arm, how you doing?
Well, interestingly enough, it does use your arm. It's very similar to kinesiology. So, well, you can test it anyway, but most people test using the wrist. So what we're doing is, the theory is that your body has an innate knowledge about how to come back into balance. And when I say balance, the physical experiences we feel are just one part of a whole picture. So there's the physiology, there is the energies within your body, there's your psychology, so your belief systems, your active memories that still have emotional components tied to them. There's your environment around you, and there's your spiritual experiences as well. They're all tied together. And so obviously if you go to a doctor, the doctor doesn't take into account a whole lot of that and only looks at one part of the picture. So with body talk, what happens is your body should be able to keep that all in balance, kind of like a bicycle wheel. When one spoke of that bicycle wheel breaks, it's going to shift the balance on the entire bicycle wheel. And the body has an acute knowing of what the balance needs to be and will bring back into balance what needs to happen. Unfortunately, in today's climate, there's just so much going on. There's so much stress that at times it can almost be like a trip switch has gone off, and we know, and the body kind of stops recognizing that there's imbalance, or it just stays out of balance for so long that it's just no longer is recognized as being out of balance. And so the muscle testing is to ask the body, what is it that we need to focus on? And it's kind of a process of elimination. So we run through questions like, are we looking at organs, endocrines, body parts? Are we looking at active memory? Are we looking at cellular repair? Are we looking at past life memories, 8th chakra stuff, which is karmic as well? So there's so many different layers to this. And then by bringing that into the awareness of the body, by bringing it into consciousness, it's almost like the body gets a little prod to bring that back into balance in the way that it needs to. And it's really quite a profound system. I mean, I've been working with body talk since 2009, and I'm still blown away by, like, I'll do a session on someone from a distance, because we're working with energy, so you can work over a distance. So I can't even ask for clarification, and then I give them the feedback, and afterwards. And I'll say like, oh, like, I'm quite nervous to share this because it sounds so crazy. And afterwards I say, oh my word, how did you know? or like that just resonated so much with me. So it's a really profound system. And yes, our bodies are also always talking to us. So we hold consciousness in different parts of our body. So for instance, our shoulders will hold a consciousness of responsibility. And oftentimes when we're holding a lot of tension in the shoulders, it can be because we're feeling overburdened, or we're needing to protect our hearts. That's another aspect of the shoulders.
Yeah, people start leaning forward and right in that
Exactly.
protective mode. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. And the adrenals have the consciousness of overwhelm. So the positive aspects of that consciousness is that of the adrenals is that it gives us the energy. So the adrenals and kidneys are the masculine, feminine. The masculine gives you the drive. It gives you the clarity and the direction. But when that becomes out of balance, it topples over into overwhelm. And the kidneys are about willpower. So we need a little bit of willpower to get us going. We don't want to have too much fear, which then causes an excess willpower or a paralysis of willpower where we get frozen. And so that works very closely with the adrenals. So when there's too much willpower or we're frozen, we go into overwhelm and paranoia. And this is all the relationship with the adrenals and kidneys. Adrenals are about survival. Our most basic survival needs will trigger adrenal responses. So this is the whole HPA axis, which gets triggered around feeling that in some way we are unsafe. So coming back to what I realized was, okay, so I have on some level perceived life to be unsafe since I was a child. And as a result, I have adapted myself in various ways. And it wasn't just, I'm going to go into what made me feel unsafe, which many people don't realize impacts them. But because I felt unsafe, I put coping mechanisms in place. And my coping mechanisms were to rescue people, to fix the situation, to plan and to organize, to be really
spirit here. Like I'm like, you're speaking to me.
Yeah. So this is what I call the holding personality. Well, this is because essentially our personality is shaped by the experiences we have, which make us become who we are, which is quite hectic, because if we have lots of traumas or we don't feel safe in our lives, we'll shape ourselves in a way that makes us feel safe, and that becomes our personality. We then think that is who we are, which is quite a massive thing when we go through life not realizing that perhaps this is actually not my truth. And so I do not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It is really awesome to be able to plan and organize and be really capable and responsible. Like there's of course there's value in it. Patriarchy loves those kind of qualities.
Mm-hmm.
We get affirmed for it. But yes, it helps if you need to get a project done, you need to run a family. The thing is, if you're doing it from a place of fear and you're doing it unconsciously to feel good enough and to feel safe, it is no longer serving you.
And I love that you said that, because I think there's so many of the women listening and moms listening that you're like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't. And then we're exhausted and overwhelmed. We're getting tension all over the place. And it's like, and then it's all these autoimmune conditions and chronic illnesses, because like you said, the body's talking and it's the mind, the body, everything connecting. And then we just are like, where do we start? What do we do? We're so overwhelmed. We just want to crawl in the bed and just sit there all day.
And what's wrong with me? And it's all a disconnect. It all starts from shutting down because it was just too hard, or it just felt the emotions were too difficult. And then the body is trying to get your attention so that you can reconnect. So the healing is the reconnection. But the crazy thing is also, okay, so the way this all starts is, for many people, our parents were able to provide the practical aspects of love and a home and a family and care. But for many of us, our parents were not able to hold our emotions because they never received that. Because it is triggering for our parents. And if we are parents, then I'm sure many of the listeners will also recognize this. When our children are angry, when they're shouting at us, when they're upset and having a tantrum, it is very triggering for us.
Oh, absolutely.
And so much so.
Absolutely. I mean, I was actually just on a parenting seminar talking just about this. When you have the blow-ups, when you have the tantrums, it's
Mm,
not about the kid. They're
mm,
just learning from you and feeling your unsafeness and your
yeah,
triggers and things like that.
yeah,
And it's because, and she was even talking, she's like, it's because you're triggered because of your parents not showing you
yes,
how to handle your emotions. So I love that this is
yes.
reinforced in what you're
Yes,
doing too.
exactly. So in any event where as a child we try to express ourselves authentically, which is to to scream or shout, or even to just try and say, but I don't like that. This is what I like. And you get told, well, you'll do what I say, or well, I know better than you. Um, in any instance where that authentic expression could possibly result in a parent emotionally disconnecting, or even putting you in your room, or saying, if you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about, whatever, all of those kind of punishments, that causes us to then start to slowly shut ourselves down and to learn that it is not safe when I show up as I am. And it's unfortunately reinforced in society as well, where certain voices are given value and other voices are suppressed and are punished, where we get taught that it's perhaps not good to speak too loud, or to wear or to dress in too of a sexy manner, because you might invite something to happen to you that was actually your fault because you were dressing that way, or all of these kind of layers that cause us to then shape ourselves in a way that it's going to be, so we're going to be safe. And safety in this case means, technically at the baseline of it, it's belonging to a tribe. We want to be loved and belong. And I thought, and so this is all like came to me, and I realized, gosh, so many of my clients have this kind of background, and so many of my clients have now got these coping mechanisms in place where they are depleting themselves because they're just trying to feel safe and good enough. And it was a huge turning point for me. It shaped then obviously how I worked with my clients. It shaped my own relationship with myself and with my husband, my children, and it's still unfolding and very much a work in progress. But yeah, that's been my story.
And I love that too, because there's so many, and you said you go to therapy too and things like that. And I encourage everyone to do it at least once in your life, to go through that stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you start to, and I'm sure you've heard this in your sessions too, and you tell your clients this, it's like when you start to share your story and open up and things like that, you end up healing. You think that you're sharing it to help other people, you end up healing as a
Yeah.
result of that stuff. So it,
Yeah.
it goes both ways. Like you said, you're still a work in progress. We are until that last breath that we
Oh, yeah.
take, right? And I was just having a conversation with a client this week. There's no book of life and it says you have to be to this stage by this point. No one's going to sit there with a checklist saying on your deathbed, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you feel
Yeah.
this way? Did you treat people a certain way? Like all these different things. No one's going to have that checklist. And
Mm.
I just love some of these things that you've been saying about, your adrenal fatigue. And I want to touch a little bit on what you called that holding personality too.
Mm. So So the holding personality will be the way we then have structured ourselves to feel safe. So it is the perfectionism. It is, so it's all of these things to an extreme. It is when we are responsible, when we try and hold responsibility for everything, and we tend to take it on for everything, even when it's actually really not ours to take on. It is being overly capable. It's being it's the rescuing and the fixing, because on some level we realize, if I act like this, it upsets mom or dad or whoever else. So I need to therefore act in this way to protect them. So that rescuing and protecting then becomes a tendency. And often you'll find people may come to you a lot to ask your advice, or because you're a good listener. There's often a degree of high sensitivity and empathy as well. There can be a difficulty saying no, and definitely a tendency to people please. And there can also be inflexibility as well, kind of getting quite stuck in certain ways of doing things because that just feels safer. So it's the structure that feels safe. So it's a lot of holding everything together, not being able to be vulnerable and show that you're backbone, holding all the different balls up in the air and holding everything for everyone else. And it actually, if people, I say to my clients, the first place I start is getting in the body And I say to them, when you're the last time you were overwhelmed and you were holding everything, I want you to feel in your body what was going on. And it's always contraction. It's tension and contraction. And the thing is that tension and contraction started way back then. So it's become a pattern that is so ingrained in the musculoskeletal alignment that it then also impacts on your energy flow and on your physiological functioning, so that you are more inclined to burn out, adding to all the energy you're putting into these coping mechanisms, adding to all the energy you're putting into trying to suppress your truth. It just all kind of compounds the whole process. And then on top of that, there's a minor fight flight that can be going on like most of the day without us even realizing it. And that impacts every system in the body, so that you're not functioning optimally. You're not in a rejuvenation state.
Yeah, your body's not detoxify either, because it's
Yeah.
so busy fighting everything else when it's really supposed to be like cleaning out your system every day type thing too.
Yeah. And the chronic inflammation, which I was looking at your other podcasts that you've shared. I know you shared about that. So that's the holding personality, and it people just believe that is who they are, and it is, and of course it is valued. We get so much affirmation when we're holding for everyone else, and when we're really good at our jobs, because we're the ones who can take it all on and do it all and do it really well, because if you're going to do it, you better do it properly. Right? And then basically, when you're in that space, what is going on is that your inner child has been triggered. On some level, that inner child is not feeling safe and is putting all those coping mechanisms together. And even though you're now in your adult body, you're still doing the very same things that that little child version of you started to do to feel safe. And in fact, on some level,
all these like connections that are just, it remembers things over and over, and it remembers. I mean, you can think back to, childhood, and like you said, remember how you felt in a situation, and your body starts to react that same way. Whether it's a good situation, whether it's a bad situation, a fearful, an excitement, think back to maybe a special birthday party where you're super excited, your body's going to respond that same way. So tell us a little bit kind of how you work with clients to basically, we'll call it like unremembering that, and then re-remembering those new ways so that your body can heal.
Yeah, so it involves reparenting yourself, and it involves creating new neural pathways. But to do all of that, you have to start feeling first. So like I said, ultimately what has happened is there's been a disconnect. So when I start working with clients, the very first thing I do is to help them to feel what it feels like when they're in that space, and to become super familiar with the feeling, because then when they feel it, what I do is I support them to do a few practices. One would be, for instance, grounding. So for me, I mean, even with my knowledge I had, it took me a while to connect that when I was in that wired, like frenzied kind of feeling in my body, that my inner child had been triggered, and that she was kind of like going, help me, I'm feeling a bit desperate and overwhelmed right now. And but I'm not saying anything, I'm not asking for help, because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to say I'm not okay as my adult self. So I would then go, and then I realized that I was holding it like a band often across my back and over my heart. Like it was almost like I had a metal band around my chest, and oftentimes, of course, in the shoulders and the jaw. And then when I felt that, I would stop. Okay, so stopping is really important, and stopping is so difficult, because it's when we stop that we feel.
None of us want to stop.
Yeah. And we don't feel like we have the time to stop.
Right.
So stop. And then I put my hand on my heart, and I'd say to myself, it's okay. You're going to be okay. So essentially, I was connecting with my inner child again in a way that my parents weren't able to do, because they didn't have the capacity or the knowledge to do that. And
I love that you said that. It's just kind of saying it's okay. Because you think about, and I've had other coaches and stuff tell me this too. It's like what you tell yourself and how you respond to yourself. Would you treat like a 4-year-old that way?
Yes.
You wouldn't. You would be saying things like, hey, it's okay. Like I know when I hug my 4-year-old, I'm like, it's okay, buddy. You're going to be all right. You're safe here. You're all those things. If you sit there and yell at like, you're not going to be safe. deal with it yourself. That's going to shut them down, right? So
Mm,
we've
mm,
done that to ourselves. Like you said, our parents have done that. They haven't known how to, because like their
yeah.
generation was basically like, suck it up, keep moving,
Mm,
like
mm,
just get
mm,
things done. That's all. That's what it's about. Don't those feelings thing. Like we don't talk about
yeah.
that. Go in your room and
No.
cry about it, right?
Well, I've noticed, see, my husband will do the it's okay thing, but he does it. So my daughter will be upset and my husband will say, you're fine. And I'm like, no, but she's not fine.
Fine.
So she's not okay. So like, so it's also going, I know it's difficult, but you're going to be okay. It's like, it is. It's so I hear it's like you saying you're safe here. I know it feels difficult, but you are safe. So
And I
it's
love that you
that
say
kind of
that too. It's like,
reminder.
you know that it's difficult because life is going to have some difficulties. It's going
Yeah.
to, but you're going to be
Yeah.
okay through it, right? This too
Yes,
shall pass, right? It's going to pass,
exactly.
but we need to
Yeah.
feel safe throughout the whole process of it.
Yeah, we make it so much more difficult by resisting it and by fearing it. And it's actually the being able to embrace and feel it that makes it so much easier. But it's because we never were embraced when we felt things, and we weren't supported when we felt it. We don't know how to do it for ourselves. So the very first step is just to acknowledge when you are feeling it and what it feels like in your body. Then it is bringing some kind of grounding. So that is whether it's actually physically standing on the earth and feeling the ground beneath your feet and knowing that that earth is not going anywhere. That she, and it's a she for me, I work with masculine and feminine. So she is there, that mother energy is beneath your feet. And you can deeply root yourself into the earth and it's not going anywhere. And it also helps to get you back into your body and out of your head when you do that. Breathing, because breathing brings you back in touch with your body. It also brings you in touch with your emotions, which is why we don't breathe properly, because again, we're afraid to actually feel
Like
it.
all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Deep.
exactly. Or holding, just holding
Yeah.
the breath. Yeah. And then connecting with the inner child, hand on heart. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but it's not and I also will say to myself, it's not the same as when you were little. It's not the same. It's different. You've got resources right now that you never had. You can ask people for
Mhm.
help and you couldn't do that when you were little. Like this is different. So it's differentiating as well, and just reminding yourself that you are not a powerless little girl anymore or little boy. And so that's the connection phase, and we have to start with feeling safe first. We can't make shifts until we feel safe and until we've come back to ourselves. Then we can start to let go, because that stuff we've put in place, that's pivotal to our identity firstly, and to our sense of believing it keeps us safe. So we can't just take it away. And so the connection, and of course for me, the connection and what I've realized, a big part is the spirituality. So for me, the spiritual is working with a masculine and feminine consciousness, where the masculine, we've tended to identify with the unconscious masculine, which is not connected to the feminine. That is drive, control, rational, reasonable, like reason. It's the linear aspect that is if it's in balance, it brings us the clarity and the direction. It brings us the support, the presence, the emptiness, the stillness. And if you can have that emptiness, that presence, that stillness in balance with the feminine, which is your creative life force, it is the essence of your truth. The life force is our sexual essence. It's the same thing. It is the creative essence. It's all the same thing. We can allow ourselves to start to receive that because we feel safe enough to actually express and receive it. And the masculine holds the structure and the container. So I work with that in an embodied way with my clients, so they can actually feel what it feels like to be held and contained, and what it feels like to allow that beautiful, raw, feminine truth. And we all, the men and women, and however we identify ourselves, we all have that feminine in us. And that can then come through, and it's like plugging back into life force again. So it is so important for our energy. It's prana, it's chi, it's all of that stuff. It's our vitality.
It
So
is.
I often imagine it like plugging above your head, plugging up there, and below your root chakra, plugging down into the ground through that root and just receiving that life force. So that's part of the connection. And so any form of spirituality where a person feels that there is something greater than themselves, that they're not alone, that they're not this alone, powerless child, that there is something holding them and supporting them, that is going to help that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so key here. So key here. Oh my goodness, we can keep talking all day about this because this is amazing. Um, so if you can leave the audience with one thing that they can do right now, other than reaching out to you and starting coaching and stuff with you, what would you recommend they do right now if they're going through this, physical imbalance, they're stressed and they're fatigued?
Right now is to ask themselves, what might my body be telling me? Is it possible that there's a gift in this? And I know that is so hard to hear in the I honestly, I get it, because I know how debilitating and desperate we can feel. But just to kind of plant a little seed, is it possible that your body is telling you that perhaps there's something that needs to change? There's something about how you've been doing life or experiencing life that needs to change. And is it possible then to reach out somehow for support to do that? Because we all are many people with chronic illnesses are so self-reliant. It's that holding personality. It's like we've always done it all ourselves, so we think we can fix it ourselves. Or we reach out and let everyone else just give us the answers. We're needing to find that balance where we come back to ourselves, take our power into our hands, and then from that position, ask for help outside of ourselves.
Yeah, we
And then
educate.
feel how it resonates.
Exactly. We educate, we empower ourselves to ask for help and to take care of ourselves on our own. Like you said, it is that balance.
Yeah.
It's so massive. I love that. Well, where can they find you?
Okay. So I have a Facebook group. It's www.facebook.com/groups/conscious energy. And website at kerrymagnus.net. And so those are my main platforms at the moment.
Yeah, and she's got on her website, guys, like are you tired of being tired? She's got 5 secrets to help you with that too. So we'll definitely put all of that stuff in the show notes so you can check it out and connect with her. And if you guys have resonated with anything that she's said today, Miss Kerry here, go ahead, go to her site, get on a phone call with her, get on a Zoom call with her, have a conversation. She is so incredibly intelligent in this arena, and she's got a family of 2 kids that now she's doing so much better with it. As we've talked about, she's gone through it all. I always love connecting and being in alignment with people who have been through it, and they're coaching people, not someone who just has a desire to learn about it and teach people, but someone who's been through it and then takes that, like you said, it's a gift. She is taking the gift she has been given now and extending that invitation to you guys, and has helped so many people over the years through it. So I want to thank you so much, Kerry, for coming on and joining us on our podcast here of Designing the Best You. And any last words before we sign the audience off here?
Just to say, please don't give up. I know it's so easy to give up, but honestly, I have seen with so many people just what can happen and what gifts we can get out of the struggle. There is always light in the darkness. So just wish everyone the very, very best. And yeah, sending lots of love to everyone.
Awesome. Well, you guys all keep working on designing the best you. And again, check out the show notes and check out Kerry's stuff. She's amazing. And if you like this episode, go ahead and take a screenshot of it, tag both of us. All of our stuff's going to be again in the show notes, and post it everywhere. Share it with people who need it, who may need some hope, may need some help, because we're all about designing that best you, mind, body, and soul.